Hello, I'm Jeff Bast from Bast Amron, and this is the webcast version of the Practice Podcast.
I'm Brett Amron. So today we wanted to talk to you guys about run through a typical conversation we have with clients that either call us or come in and meet with us. Although today it would be a Zoom meeting instead of an in-person meeting. And it goes something like this. Listen, my revenue is down, particularly during these times and the shutdown and stay-at-home orders and business that may have otherwise been impacted by COVID. My bills are piling up. I'm getting phone calls from my creditors and emails, and they're all over me. What do I do? And our question back to them goes something like, "Well, what have they said to you?" And the response is typically, "Well, I don't know." So, what do we do?
Well, the response is I don't know, because they haven't communicated with their creditors. And sometimes it's they haven't reached out to the creditors, but often it's they haven't responded to the creditors. They've gotten letters or emails or calls, and they've just ignored them. And that is the absolute worst thing you can do.
Why? Why is that so
it's
bad?
Human. It's good question. I'm glad you asked.
Why, right?
Well, first, your problems aren't just going to go away if you ignore them. That's just not how the real world works. But more importantly, it's human nature. When we don't have information, we start to make assumptions based upon past experience. So if you're a bank officer and you have a borrower who is not returning your calls and not responding to letters or emails, automatically you're going to assume the worst. This is a person who absconded with assets or the money, or they've shut the business down or something. They're just going to draw assumptions based on the information that's available. And so that's actually oftentimes one of the most difficult first steps for us, is overcoming the lack of information and mistrust. When people are ignored, they automatically assume the worst. It's the same thing for you. If you're trying to reach a family member because somebody was in the hospital and you can't get information, nobody's responding, you automatically start assuming the worst. And there's no difference with creditors. And so we always advise our debtor clients, any business owner that's having difficulty, particularly in this climate right now, reach out to your creditors and communicate with them, talk to them. And I'm always amazed at how what a surprise that is to so many business owners. They just, really, I should call them? Well,
yeah, because I think part of the question and some of the issue we've heard is, well, what do I tell them, right? To me, and part of what we counsel clients on is, always, obviously there's, tell the truth. I'm not saying you have to pour out your soul and open up your books necessarily on the first call or the second call and sort of lay out your plan, but have a conversation with a creditor, because, a creditor is going to appreciate that. I will tell you a quick story, an anecdote. I represented a client who was shutting down their business, had a certain amount of money available to pay creditors, was very nervous about it, but sent out communications to all the creditors and said, "Listen, I'm shutting down. I only have a certain amount of money. This is what I can pay you as a percentage of what I owe you." Most creditors said thank you and took it. A couple of creditors said, "Hey, that's not enough," and ultimately it was resolved. And one creditor actually, in a surprising twist, said, "Keep the money. You guys need it. We're good." It wasn't a lot that was owed, but they understood and they appreciated, and they said, and their response was, "In this business, most people just run away and don't even reach out to us and make us an offer and resolve it." So I'm not saying that's going to happen, right, in every situation. That was very unique, but it just shows the importance of communicating with your creditors and those you owe money to, and they appreciate it. And it's like you said, it's the simple stuff. You would imagine that, creditors, business owners would do this, but I get it's human nature to say, whoa, I don't want to communicate with them and tell them I'm having trouble, because then they're just going to come down on me. That's not what they're in the business of. They're in the business of trying to get themselves paid, obviously, if they're a bank. and if they're otherwise in a different business of supplying food or whatever to your business, obviously that's their business. They just need to get paid just like you do in your business.
Right. Yeah. I mean, communicating is really, it just changes the tenor of the relationship. And think about it, if it's when the roles are reversed, if you're a business owner and you've ordered product for your business and the supplier hasn't shipped it to you, and you haven't shipped it, they haven't shipped it, and now it's late and you haven't heard from them and you have to reach out to call them, you're upset. You're already upset when you're reaching out. Whereas if you heard from the supplier and the supplier called and said, hey, I know it's due next Thursday, but we're not going to be able to meet it because we have this problem or that problem, they've addressed it before there's a stressful impetus for communication. So getting ahead and being proactive is just so important. So we always advise our clients, reach out. I shouldn't say always, I don't like absolutes. We usually will advise our clients to reach out to creditors. And so what do you say? As Brett indicated, first, be honest. We never will advise, this is an absolute I will employ. We never advise our clients to lie to creditors. You want to be honest, but you want to communicate to the creditors that it is not your intention to run away from this thing. You're not just going to walk and you're not looking to just not pay or avoid. So communicate. I intend to stick with this business. I have a plan. Let them know you have a plan. Be very clear about what you're asking for. You should know that before you call, by the way. Do you need 30 days? Do you need 60 days? Do you need 90 days? Whatever it is, ask for it. And then follow up. I always advise follow up to the creditor after. If the creditor says, if you ask for 90 days and the creditor says, I can't give you 90 days, but I'll give you 60 days. Take the 60 days. A lot of people say, I need 90 and they would only give me 30. So I just told them, forget it. That's a terrible mistake. Take what you can get from the creditor. If they give you 30 days, fine. You just bought yourself 30 days. And on day 28 or 29, you call them again and you have another conversation. But at that time, maybe both sides are more informed and the climate has changed, particularly with the current climate of coronavirus and the mass shutdowns. Most businesses have been mothballed. Take the 30 days. Communicate in 30 days. Maybe we're reopened. Maybe you start to have some revenue. You're having another conversation. You can always ask for another extension at that time. So communicating is so important, but then follow up. If you get the extension, send an email confirming it. Or if you have a lawyer, ask your lawyer to send some kind of confirmation. You want to have a record of whatever the communication was. And I also would throw in this advice to all business owners. When you are communicating or negotiating with a creditor, keep a journal or a log of those communications, just so you have a record of what the conversations were, because oftentimes you're dealing with one person and then the conversation will change, particularly at some financial institutions or credit card companies, whatever they may be. You might be dealing with any number of people, and so you want to have a record of what was said. And the way I advise that individuals and business owners is just keep a notepad by your phone and write it down, or preferably a laptop so you have a digital record, but just open your notes and write down who you spoke with, what was said, what they agreed to. And so because memories fade.
Yeah. And listen, it may be prudent to reach out to an advisor, whether it be an attorney or somebody else, to sort of figure out what your communication is going to be before you communicate with creditors. But it may be just the best thing for you to communicate and not have an attorney, at least on the front end. That's not to say that you shouldn't be communicating necessarily with counsel in order to sort of figure out what that plan is and what your communication will be, and map it out. That might be a good option for you.
Yeah. So that's kind of it. Communication is key. Get ahead, be proactive, be clear about what you want, be honest, make the ask, and take what you can get.
Communicate. Bye, everybody.
Bye.